Alright, what's up guys? Juke back here with another video, and I know it's been a while, but a lot of things got in the way. OBS is like bugging, so I had to switch to action. Shout out to Rainway for showing me this. But today we're going to be talking about the ways you can make your game look a lot better without doing much work, and that's through lighting. So we're going to go into the lighting here. It's in the Explorer. It should be open right when you open Studio. If not, you can go to View and it'll be right here in the top left. After you open that up, so let me just make this a little bigger. You want to click this little arrow right here, and for me, I'll have a bunch of these, but for you, you're probably not gonna have any of these, so it'll be empty. Let me just delete these real quick, just so you can see the difference, and so I can show you how to add that stuff in. So when you open Studio, so it's gonna look, this is what it's just gonna look like your regular game or whatever game you're trying to make. And see, if you look at the colors, it's really dull. I don't know, you can see all the way down to there. Actually, let me change something. This is not even, this should be like that. So like it looks really kind of whack right now because yeah, you can see all the little flaws everywhere. You can see the end of the water right here. And that just doesn't make a game look very nice or an area look very nice. So what you're going to want to do first, the easiest thing you can do is change the fog. Fog start you can play around with, but you don't really need that. You can just leave that as 0 or whatever the default is. For fog end, just play around with like the size of your map. So this map is actually pretty big, so like if I change it to 500, now you can see that I can't see the details of these homes back here, and it just makes the map feel a little bit bigger. For water and stuff, you can still kind of see the edges. I'll show you a fix for that later, but the basic way to fix that is you just put a brick at the end here and make it like go up, so that way you don't see the edge of the sky over here. But that's something that you can just experiment with. So we're gonna go back to the lighting. And so if I play around with a fog here, this feels like a little bit too drastic because like if I'm down here, I don't want to be able to see like this super gray fog for something that's not even that far. Like if I'm right here, you have this fog for a wall that's not even that far. So we'll change it back to 750, and now it's a little bit better. So if I go back up here, so you can see these homes right here, but the ones way out are a lot blurrier, and that's what you kind of want with lighting. You can play around the colors too. You just click the fog color, and normally I don't change the tint, which is the color right here, but if you're going for like a more apocalyptic feel, you can change that to like maybe like a yellowish, so it's like a haze sort of pollution kind of thing. But for most cases, you're just going to want to keep it black and white. You can go black for nighttime when it's really dark, and daytime, like the morning fog, you just put that up here. Normally, I don't like going super, like the top, the most bright white, because if you look back here, it kind of looks weird. If you change it to like a grayish tint, then it looks more like fog. But yeah, that's pretty much it for fog. So now to add all those other settings in that I had before, you just right-click this and insert object. And you're gonna look for all these things with like a little, it looks like a little camera lens, like the aperture. You click, so let's start with bloom. This is gonna add like a little, makes your game feel more like a fantasy, like a dream sort of game. The threshold is kind of like the value at which it's gonna start, sort of. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can just play around with it. This is gonna make the the bloom a lot more drastic. So if you put it all the way down here, you can see that it feels like a dreamscape. So if you want to go for that, or if you want to put it at 1, there's really nothing. There's no bloom. Normally I keep it around 0.9. If I really want to go for like a dream kind of feel, 0.85. I never go all the way down here because then you get like this over contrasted area out here. All the brights become really, really bright. But let's just keep that at 0.9. The size is the size of the bloom, so you can kind of tell you can see back here. Let me just change this to 0.8 so you can see the differences. So if I lower this, it looks a lot less, it looks more crisp. Put it up here, you can see it kind of blurs out or feathers out if I do it slower, you can see, watch like right above this, you should be able to see like a black or darker area kind of zoom over, and it becomes blurrier. So let me just put this back to 0.9. And this one, if you're trying to go for like a fantasy sort of feel, I always put this a little bit higher. I'll put it at 45 for now. And intensity, I mean, you can just tell what the intensity does. You don't want to put it way too high unless you're going for like a super, like, maybe your game is going back into the past and you want to look like, I don't know, like a dream or a flashback. Then that's when you want to put it all the way up. But for now, I'm just going to play with it. Let's see. Let's try, for the sake of this video, let's just put point like 5 or something. Alright. So that's the bloom. Now, the next one we're going to go down is, I believe, blur. Yeah, blur. And this is just your basic blur. So you can just change this. Normally, I like to put it at just like 3 or something, some low number between like 1 and 5, depending on what you feel like. But this just gets rid of like the hard edges in certain builds. So I put it here. It's obviously way too blurry, but the edges become a lot cleaner versus if I have it crisp like this. Then you can see like a rough edge, and most things in the world don't have those crisp edges. So I always like to put it at like 2 or 3. Let's go with 2 on this one, just so it has just a little bit less sharpness to the edges. And that's pretty much it with blur. The next one we're going to go over is color correction right here. And this is what I use a lot to change the colors, because look, it looks really dull right now. And remember at the beginning of the video, it looked a lot more vivid and a lot more saturated. That is, well, the saturation. And if you change this to a higher value, you get a more lively feel. And if you put it all the way down, you get black and white. Now this, I'm thinking about making a game to just showcase the black and white, but you can obviously, you get a much different vibe, right? It becomes a lot more, it feels like it's more old, and you're kind of going back in time to like, I don't know, like the 1930s or something. If you put it here, it feels like a fantasy world, like everything's super vivid, everything's super bright. Normally, at least for this game, I would put it all the way up just because I'm trying to go for that fantasy feel. The contrast is what changes, well, the contrast of the colors. So it's just the differences in colors between all the different colors. So if I put it all the way down, there's no contrast, so everything's the same color. If I put it all the way up, it tries to make the lights and the darks a lot farther apart, if you know what I mean. So I like putting that at a little less value, just because it gives, see, it kind of, if you put it a little bit lower, it gives it a more blurry-ish feel, because everything becomes slightly less contrasted. But you can play around with it. Sometimes I'll go for higher if I'm trying to go for a straight up only fantasy feel. This kind of levels it out. The brightness is really basic to understand. Normally, adding less brightness for a game makes details in like smaller areas. I don't really have any in this map, but like smaller areas like caves and stuff look a lot better without adding much more detail. And changing it to a higher value makes more open areas look a lot better without adding much detail. So this is kind of intense for me. Oh, and for the slider, it only goes in increments of 0.1, but you can type in, 0.15 if you really wanted to. It makes a little bit of difference when you get into like 0.5s and 0.01 difference, but if you change like 0.0165, there's no difference. So I would just stick to the slider, or if you're trying to get the fine tuning, only go down to the second decimal place. But anyways, I'm just going to change this back to 0.12, and that's it for color correction. Now already we have a much better feel to this fantasy world. So we're going to add the last thing, which should be down here, sun rays effect, and that only affects, where's the sun? Up here. It just changes the way the sun looks. So if I add the spread to be like 0.5 and the intensity up, oh, why is it not changing actually? Hold on. Oh, maybe my hold on. Let me turn up my I forgot to mention this actually. in rendering, if you go up to the high, you have to go up to the higher settings to see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is gonna lag my computer a little bit because I'm on a laptop right now, but now you can definitely see the difference for these sun rays. So let me just turn the bloom back on, and the sun rays. So the spread, see, if you put it all the way to max, there's not really much of a difference anymore. So you want to play around with this. Normally I leave the intensity pretty low, 0.05 probably would be good here. And the spread just depends on, see, if I put it way too high with a low intensity, it just looks like a regular sun, because all the sun rays is just being spread so far apart that you're not really seeing it anymore, because the sun rays are basically way out here. So you want to leave this kind of lower, and then you can get like a really good sun intensity. Let's just raise that a little bit so you get a little bit less, a little bit more blur, and then there we go. So now we have a huge sun, and it just looks better in a fantasy world. You have like a, you know, enormous sun. But that's pretty much it to change the lighting for to make your game look a lot better. So let me just go through all of these, and if you click enabled on all these, this will just disable it. So I'll show you the difference right now after disabling all of these. You can really tell the difference, especially with the color correction. And look, it just looks a lot more dead. Even if you have the sun up there, it just looks a lot more dead. Doesn't feel like a fantasy world. It feels like a dull build. So adding these should change how your games look. It should make your games look a lot better. Yeah, I forgot to mention that actually with the sun rays, if you move the sun down to like over an edge, it looks really nice with the sun rays coming out like that. That you just get a really nice sunset. But other than that, there's not much else you can do to really change the appearance without having to directly affect or directly change the building style of the game. So the lighting is literally your best friend for changing the appearance of a game without having to modify a huge portion of your game. This is a pretty short video, but that's about it. There's not much else to say. Please leave any suggestions in the comments below. I'm going to be recording a lot more videos now that summer has started, and hopefully I can get you guys all up there, and we're all going to flood into the elite builders of Roblox here, and we're all going to take over, right? Alright, peace out.